Hey there, fellow gardeners. Welcome back to our channel, where we dig into the dirt and sprout some green knowledge. Today, we're diving into a topic that's been growing on me, pun intended. We're talking about trellising. It's a fantastic way to maximize space, improve plant health, and even make your garden look like a living piece of art. But before you start hammering stakes into the ground, there are a few things you should consider. So, grab your gloves and let's get started with the 7 things you should consider before trellising your garden. Number 1, plant type and growth habit. First up, we need to think about the type of plants you're growing and their growth habits. This might seem obvious, but not every plant is suited for trellising. Climbers like beans, peas, and cucumbers naturally grab onto supports, making them perfect candidates. But did you know that some tomatoes also love a good climb? On the other hand, bush-type plants like bush beans or determinate tomatoes don't need a trellis. So, before you set up that elaborate trellis system, make sure you know what your plants need. For example, if you're growing peas, they have these nifty little tendrils that can latch onto almost anything. Meanwhile, cucumbers use their curling vines to climb, and they can get quite heavy, so you'll need a sturdy support. Knowing your plant's growth habit will help you choose the right trellis type and size. And speaking of size, that brings us to our next point. Number 2, space and garden layout. Let's talk about space and your overall garden layout. How much room do you have? Is your garden in the ground, or are you working with raised beds or containers? The size of your garden will influence the kind of trellis you can install. If you're working with a small space, like a balcony or a small urban garden, vertical gardening with trellises can be a game changer. It allows you to grow more in less space by letting plants grow up instead of out. But even in a larger garden, proper layout planning is key. You don't want your trellised plants to cast too much shade on their neighbors. Consider the sun's path and plant height. For example, if you're planting tall, trellised plants like pole beans, place them on the north side of your garden bed so they don't overshadow shorter plants. And if you're dealing with windy conditions, place your trellises in a spot that provides some wind protection. A little planning goes a long way. Number 3, trellis material and durability. Alright, let's talk about materials. This is where you can get a bit creative. Trellises can be made from a variety of materials, including wood, metal, bamboo, and even repurposed items like old ladders or bed frames. The material you choose will depend on factors like durability, aesthetics, and budget. For instance, wooden trellises are classic and blend well with natural garden aesthetics, but they may not last as long as metal ones. Metal trellises, on the other hand, are super sturdy and can support heavier plants, but they might not have that rustic charm. Bamboo is another popular choice because it's strong and lightweight, but it can break down over time. If you're going for a more DIY approach, you can even use string or netting for lightweight climbers. Just remember, whatever material you choose, it should be able to support the weight of your plants, especially when they're laden with fruit. And if you're using metal, consider whether it will get too hot in the sun, as this can damage tender plants. Number 4, trellis size and plant support. Next, let's discuss the size of your trellis and how much support your plants will need. The size of the trellis should be proportional to the mature size of your plants. For example, if you're growing indeterminate tomatoes, which can grow quite tall, you'll need a tall and sturdy trellis, possibly 6 to 8 feet high. On the other hand, a smaller trellis might suffice for compact plants like peas. Also, consider the spacing of your supports. Plants like cucumbers might need more frequent horizontal support to prevent the fruit from weighing down the vines. You can use crossbars, netting, or even horizontal strings spaced at regular intervals. And don't forget, as plants grow, you'll need to train them to climb the trellis. This might involve gently tying them with soft ties or guiding their tendrils. It's a bit like being a plant coach, helping them reach their full potential. Number 5, watering and maintenance. Trellised plants have different water needs compared to those grown on the ground. Since they're elevated, they can dry out faster, especially in hot weather. This means you might need to water them more frequently. However, because they're off the ground, the risk of soil-borne diseases is reduced, which is a great benefit. One handy tip is to water at the base of the plants rather than from above. This helps prevent water from sitting on the leaves, which can lead to fungal issues. Drip irrigation or soaker hoses work wonders for this. And remember, trellised plants might need more frequent feeding, especially if they're heavy fruit bearers. A balanced fertilizer can help keep them healthy and productive. Regularly check for pests, prune as needed, and make sure your trellis structure remains sturdy throughout the growing season. Number 6. Aesthetics and garden design. Now, let's get a little artsy. Trellising isn't just functional, it can also add a lot of aesthetic appeal to your garden. Think of it as vertical garden art. You can choose trellises that match your garden style, whether it's rustic, modern, or whimsical. Plus, they can be a great way to create privacy or section off different parts of your garden. Climbing flowers like clematis, morning glories, or even climbing roses can transform a simple trellis into a stunning vertical bouquet. And don't forget, you can get creative with decorations. Fairy lights, small lanterns, or wind chimes can add a magical touch, especially in the evening. If you're feeling really adventurous, you can even grow edible flowers like nasturtiums alongside your vegetables. It's all about making your garden a space you love to spend time in, so let your creativity run wild. Number 7. Future planning and crop rotation. Last but definitely not least, let's talk about future planning and crop rotation. Trellises can be a permanent fixture in your garden, but it's good to think ahead about how you'll use them from season to season. Crop rotation is important to prevent soil depletion and pest buildup. So, plan out what you want to grow and where. For example, if you grow peas one year, you might want to switch to cucumbers or beans in the same spot next year. Keeping a garden journal can be really helpful. Note down what you planted, how well it did, and any issues you encountered. This way, you can make informed decisions for the next growing season. And don't be afraid to experiment. Maybe try a new variety or a different training method. Gardening is all about learning and growing, pun totally intended. So, there you have it, 7 things to consider before trellising your garden. From choosing the right plants and materials to planning your garden layout and adding a touch of beauty, trellising can be a fantastic way to enhance your gardening experience. I hope these tips help you grow your best garden yet.